Well, hello, friends. God is on the move in Utah. And today I want to introduce you to one of my friends, Brody Olson. So, Brody, um, tell us, what do you do? Where do you live? And why do you live there? I would love to hear that.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on the interview here, Dave. And my name is Brody Olson. I live in Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah, the border communities that were formerly the domain of the FLDS community. And we've been here for about 12 years almost. And we came here to see if we can start some sort of Christian ministry among the FLDS community. Yeah, so we started a ministry here called Grace Reigns years ago, and it was intended to help people who were coming out of the FLDS find food, clothing, some of those basic needs. And then it kind of grew into what we now have as a thrift store, youth center, and then the church got started out of that as well. And the church is called Community of Grace Church. So I am the executive director of the Grace Reigns Ministry, and I'm the pastor of Community of Grace Church. And that was established about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, something like that as well. So,
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what you mean by FLDS, just what does that stand for? And just give a little tiny brief history of that.
yeah, sounds good. Well, the F in FLDS stands for fundamentalist. So they believe in the early teachings of the LDS Church, and that primarily includes polygamy. And there are others as well, but polygamy is kind of the hallmark feature of this community. And so they moved out here many years ago to establish a community where they felt they could practice polygamy without the onlooking eye of the government or the LDS Church, which at the time, is very opposed to it and continues to be. But these guys felt like because it was one of the major tenets of the church early on, they moved out here and they've been doing it they've been practicing polygamy ever since, I would say, the late 20s, early 30s. And so their prophet is a guy named Warren Jeffs, who a lot of people have heard of in the past. And he's been in prison for a number of years. He still controls the FLDS community from there. And we came right in the middle of all of that, kind of in the middle of the lion's den here. And as a result of some of the things that he's done over the years, the FLDS community has really shrunk within the Colorado City, Hilldale area. And so we've been here to help people pick up the pieces of their lives in whatever way that we possibly can. But we knew that the primary need that we all have is a relationship with Jesus. And so our desire through all of it has been to introduce them to Jesus as we help serve them in some of the material needs that they might have as well.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I remember meeting you for the first time, and you were living in a basement apartment in a house, and you and your new bride at the time, Liz, you had just moved in, and you were the first Christians ever to live in that community, right? Like the community was owned by the fundamentalist Latter-day Saint Church, basically, and
Mm-hmm.
you were the first Christians to move in there.
Yeah.
Are you still the only Christians there?
No, no. In fact, there's not only have other Christian people become Christians, and as a result of what God has done, but he's also brought other Christians into the community to help with the progress of bringing the gospel into this community as well. So, yeah, I mean, if you can consider that there's one place in America that the gospel has never gone to, of all of the places that the gospel's been, like in this community, it's very possible that the people that you run into when we first moved out here had never had interaction with another Christian person, because they've been so segregated, I guess, from society because of the teachings of their church. And so it's possible that they've never even met a Christian. And so, yeah, we are not only the first ones that have moved into the community, but possibly the first ones these people have ever met, a number of them. So, yeah, this was an unchurched area.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure. I know we hear that word unchurched a lot, but it really was a community like that. Man, and I'm so proud of you being there for 12 years now. It's hard to believe that you've been there that long. Stuff is progressing in your ministry. You started in a basement. Where's the church at now? Where's your ministry at now? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, what started in our basement, really probably I could say started with two things. One was a phone call from HOH needing help, assistance, boots on the ground, so to say, as they were helping people that were leaving the FLDS church or being kicked out and needed just resources. So we helped them with that. And then we eventually started a little Bible study with two ex-FLDS guys who were really in dire straits. Either their family members had kicked them out of their house, or they had lost their children, or whatever the case was. So that started a small Bible study in our house. So over time, those ministries have developed into, partially humanitarian, but also spiritual. And so what began as kind of a food pantry or clothing pantry evolved into a thrift store. And then what we noticed too with the community was that there was a real attempt to stop all communication within different family groups. And so part of what Warren Jeffs did with the FLDS is he tried to divide people. And so in that way, we thought, well, let's start a community center. So what began as a community center continues to operate as such, but it's really more turned into a youth center. So I would say that we now operate a thrift store, a youth center, and we have a full-blown church with elders and doing baptisms and things of that nature. And so, we discovered one of the things that we did when we first came out is we wanted to give them exposure to other Christians, not just us. That might be a poor display of who Christ is. So we want to get a lot of people in here. And in doing so, we thought we'd reach out to the youth in the community. And what we discovered over time was, though we had great outreaches on those summer trips that other people would come out, we didn't have anything that would captivate them or hold them close to us. We didn't have anything that would bring them in regular contact with us, I should say. And so we started a youth center, and that's been just really pivotal for our ministry too. So the thrift store, the youth center, and the church is really what it's grown to become. And by God's grace, early on, we were given use of a building. It's called the Log Cabin or the Log Building. And we eventually identified it as Common Ground Center. And at this log building is where we did all of this ministry. And we continue to use that building to this day. But by God's grace as well, he's allowed us to make steps to building another facility that will be about over 3 times the size of the current building that we're in right now. So that's kind of occupying a lot of our time and efforts.
Okay. All right. Yeah, building is a lot. So tell me a little bit about maybe someone's life change. You know, I get your newsletters. They're very exciting to see people getting baptized and people's lives changed. Can you just give me a story, just one story of somebody whose life has been transformed by Jesus recently?
Well, I've got a really great story of a girl whose life was changed, and it really worked itself through all of the ministries that we have functioning. So, this young girl came, and you know what's crazy, Dave, is that we're seeing a lot of youth actually showing interest with Christianity, which seems odd. You know, seems like the next generation, Gen Z and beyond, they're moving in the opposite direction of church and Christianity. But we're seeing some of that happen. And like, this girl came to our youth center, and she was just kind of disillusioned and wasn't that interested in spiritual things. Her dad actually came from an FLDS background, not this group, but an Allred group. And she really wanted nothing to do at the time with Christianity, but she was open, I think, to relationship, as a lot of people are. And over time, she began coming to our youth Bible study, and that began to change her perspective a little bit about who Christ is. And then as time continued to move on, I saw that she was kind of getting involved in the wrong crowds, and it seemed like she was maybe going the opposite direction until God just kind of moved in her life. And it's so cool because God used our youth center to kind of bring her into our orbit, I'd say, and then the Bible study to begin to impact her spiritual life as well. And until a point came where she just communicated to me that she really wants to get baptized. And I said, well, why would you want to get baptized if you've never come to faith in Christ? And she says, oh, I've done that already. And it was to a big shock of me. And I thought, well, okay, let me hear more about what's going on. And so as she kind of explained it to me, I realized that she truly had come to faith in Christ. And then over time, you just saw the total transformation of her life take place. And it's been really neat to see that it was God even used the ministries that were set up to be able to bring somebody from a place of disinterest to somebody who's now come to faith and has a lot of interest in spiritual things. And I just want to share this kind of as an aside as well. Like I mentioned, that there's a lot of youth that seemingly are are interested. They come with, so once their parents leave the FLDS church, the parents feel like they've done such a disservice to their children by providing them with some sort of a basis of religion, or spiritual experience, whatever you want to call it, that they've decided no longer will they have any, they won't seek to have an impact on their children's life as it relates to spirituality. So most kids don't get anything from their parents, but they're still curious, and so they start to come to us and they begin to ask these questions. And I had a kid that came to me, it was probably last maybe 2 months ago, and his family, I would say, is probably one of the most anti-Christian families within the whole community that I'm aware of. And they want nothing to do with Jesus, and what they have to do, or what they talk about, is how horrible Christians are. Well, this kid began seeing right through, some of the stuff that they were saying, and he began actually to check out church, and he was curious whether or not all of this was true. And so as time went on, we had multiple conversations, and he really expressed interest in knowing more about who Jesus is. And to my total amazement, not only did he come to church, and when I saw him for the first time, I was utterly amazed, but now he's expressing interest in getting baptized. And so we're in the process of taking him through, wanting to ensure that he has a real understanding of what Christ has done in his life. And then we're likely to baptize him, I think, in a couple of weeks from now. We're hoping that he will get baptized, and assuming that his understanding of the gospel is clear and that we're on the same page, then we'll move forward with that. But it's just neat to see that those stories happen. And it's like, and to be honest, it's like, it seems as if some of it has nothing to do with us. It's just God using even TikTok or YouTube to be able to bring these kids to kind of a state of questioning, of curiosity. And then when they come to church, they begin to get a fuller picture of what Christianity is all about. So it's really neat to see that.
Yeah. Well, you and your team and your family, you've been planting seeds for a lot of years, and it's sometimes amazing to me that, when God, in Matthew 13, where Jesus talks about the farmer goes out and plants seed, that he just spreads the seed wherever, and you never know where it's going to land. You never know which hard heart is going to actually take that seed, and it's going to grow in that seed. And God provides us the seed, and we plant them, and then he creates the harvest. We don't have anything to do with creating a seed, and we don't have anything to do with seeing a harvest come. But God tells us to be faithful, to be there to plant the seeds and to harvest the seeds. So that's amazing. And I'm excited to hear that there's young people in your community that are just hungry for Jesus. That's great. So as you think about the next few years, like what's exciting to you about the next 2 to 5 years?
I think what's exciting to me is that we can develop our ministries in a way that I can spend more time with our church and really developing, spiritual appetites, I think, with people. I think God endows some people with a desire to know him and follow through, but without a regular church who is servicing those kind of needs and providing the equipping ministry that the church does, I'm extremely excited for that. And as we move into this next phase of ministry, where it seems like things would only get busier because because we're moving from a 5,000 square foot ministry facility to 16,000 square foot, where we hope to be able to reach even a lot more people. But God has also brought a great team together with the Evans family, Gareth and Kristen Evans, who manage the thrift store, and now has just recently brought a youth center director and their family to come work with that. So that frees me up to begin to focus more attention on our church. And so I think as that happens, God is going to really increase the desire for people to know him even better than just that kind of entry level idea that they need a savior. I think that's excellent, but we need to take people even further and beyond that. So I think in the next 2 to 5 years, I can see the church growing even numerically, but hopefully in maturity as they understand more who Jesus is. And that's going to come as a result of our church getting more established, pastoral ministry becoming more of an emphasis for myself, and just seeing what that's going to look like. I mean, we're going to move right now from a very packed space of about 80 seats that is often fairly full on a Sunday, to over 150 that I think God might just decide to grow that fellowship of believers and worshipers as well. So I think in the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to see a lot of growth of Christianity within our community. And by God's grace, too, he's provided other Christian ministries to help provide for the spiritual needs of the community, too. And so maybe more Christians will move in. But I really hope that the people that are here will just hear the gospel, and God will really prick their hearts to respond to it well. So yeah, I think that's my goal, is to see that happen. So, and be here when that does happen.
That's awesome. Well, if you're listening right now and you've heard Brody's story and a little bit about what's going on in Hilldale, Colorado City, I just want to encourage you to pray for Brody and for his wife Liz, for his kids, and for their team. And this is exciting stuff that God's doing. So here you have it. God's on the move in Hilldale, Utah, of all places. And so just pray for Brody, and just pray for Loving Utah and all the pastors and the leaders and the ministries that are going on here. Stuff is exciting, and we hope to share more stories with you soon.
Well, thanks, Dave, for having me on, and thank you for all you do for Utah. I know it's a ripe field right now, it seems like, doesn't it? I mean, you would know more than me, but we see it happening here in our community, and I imagine you guys do as well there.
Yep, we do. So. All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.